broadcasting.
Blog Talk USA. Are you tired of waiting for change? Tune into Blog Talk USA. Let your voice be heard on Blog Talk USA.
Setting 1012, and it gives me 1,250 feet. Exit again.
TWA announced the arrival of their flight from Los Angeles and Chicago.
Well, Z, I guess that was our opening. Someone, me, pressed the wrong intro button. So here's your intro.
Okay, well, all right, well, this is the TNZ Talk show. I'm Richard Zombek, the Z in TNZ. We are, once again, Tony Tripiano-less today. Sitting in is Rihanna Peagles. And Rihanna Peagles, I always forget the name of your show, and why don't you give it a little plug while we're here?
Sure, thank you. It is Eyes Wide Open, Dim Blog Talk, and it's Tuesday nights at 8:30 Central, 9:30 Eastern, every single Tuesday night with my co-host Michael Hanley, and we are right here on Blog Talk USA. You can hear us live at blogtalkusa.com. Go on over there anyway and register so you can access all of our content 24/7, including right this minute. If you're listening online, we hope you're listening there, or at one of the options that you're about to hear from Z. And if you're online and you want to listen on your phone, call 347-855-8118. Press 1 to comment. Thanks, Z.
No problem. Yeah, you can find us at tnztalk.com. You'll find all of our feeds, Twitter feed, Tumblr, Facebook page, all the information you need to know about us, our archives, downloads, yada, 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 the news for today, and all of that. And I guess, Rihanna, I do want to get to the very boring Democratic town hall debate yesterday, but before that, since we mentioned Twitter, and we were talking about this particular individual yesterday, Yesterday's show was, well, mostly the entire hour was pretty much about Jonathan Capehart from the Washington Post and his egregious basic view of journalism and what that means. Mm-hmm. He's lately been hiding behind this whole explanation of that he's an opinion writer and that what he writes is perfectly fine. And my stand on it has always been that, okay, and it's like, Joe Biden's been quoted as saying this, and a lot of people have said it. You're entitled to your opinion, but you're not entitled to your own version of the facts. Right?
Exactly.
And in journalism in particular, look, if I'm hanging out, talking to people, and I'm in a restaurant or at an event or in a bar, and someone says Obama's a Muslim, and I respond with, well, that's not true, and the other person says, well, I'm entitled to my opinion, my immediate response is, well, you're an idiot, right?
Right.
I mean,
right.
That's because the facts don't bear out the opinion that Obama is a Muslim. Now, people can argue with me about the facts, and they can present all of the evidence to back up their claim that they want, but if the facts don't bear out, well, then they're not facts, and your opinion sucks. So, what else do you want me to say? So, yep. Capehart writes this, just to kind of reiterate yesterday, Capehart writes all these, really smearing articles about Bernie Sanders and his photograph that he was in. If you guys want more details, you can listen to yesterday's show. or even find my articles about it on Huffington Post and Liberals Unite. There's plenty of fodder up there. And he goes into this whole thing where this picture showing Bernie Sanders protesting at a sit-in at the University of Chicago is not in fact him. A day or two later, the photographer who took the picture says it is in fact him. Time magazine updates all their talking points and articles to reflect that. The University of Chicago, in their photograph archives, update their caption on that. So, the entire freaking world agrees that with this photographer's basically testimony or eyewitness account, that the person in the picture is in fact Bernie Sanders. So what does Jonathan Capehart do? He writes another article saying, basically questioning the photographer's memory, his negatives, his proofs, his contact sheets that people have torn apart, like I said yesterday, like it was a sighting of the Loch Ness Monster. I mean, they've got pictures with these red arrows all over the place going down to sweater fibers and stuff. And so, so Capehart's been getting attacked for the last few days on this, and there's actually a Twitter hashtag called Retract Capehart. And his latest thing that he comes out with, well, I'm an opinion writer. What? I'm an opinion writer?
Wow.
Does that make any sense to you?
No. Good God, no. It's just like you said at the beginning. I'm standing outside right now in my driveway, and it is a particular temperature out here. That's not an opinion. It is what it is.
Well, I'll tell you, and I still make fun of my wife for this because this happened about, I don't know, I want to say 2 or 3 years ago. We're walking outside. It's the middle of winter. We're here in Massachusetts. And she goes, man, it's really cold. And I go, Pamela, it's like 36 degrees. And she looks at me, she goes, yeah, it feels more like 34.
Oh, well, I stand corrected then.
She was completely serious too. So needless to say, it could have been 6 years ago. I'd still be making fun of her. But I said, what temp? I'll go outside and I'll say, what temperature is it? Do you think it's like 40, or does it feel more like, I don't know, 39 to you? And
38.5.
Yeah, I know one of us gets a big laugh out of that. So here's what happened. So everyone's going after Capehart. People on Twitter are responding to him. And what I find really interesting is that no one's calling him a liar. They're calling him disingenuous. They're calling him irresponsible. They're not going as far as just calling him a complete d-bag and things like that. So I've been responding in my own way too, and not impolitely. So I actually took a screenshot of this interaction, these 3 different interactions, and put them all in one image and tweeted that out. So he goes up, I'm trying to think, the 18th of February, yesterday, at 8:52 a.m. and says, let's remember, Jonathan Capehart is African American, gay, apparently an opinion writer with no warning behind that label.
All of a sudden.
And on the Washington Post, and also, up until this point, a pretty well-respected and reliable commenter on MSNBC. He's been on Chris Matthews. He's been on Morning Joe. He's been on. I don't think he's been on Rachel Maddow. I think he's been on Chris Hayes, but he's made the rounds, right? And the guy does very well for himself. His boyfriend, or there's question about that, ex-boyfriend, and he bought a house, a beautiful house, together in November. That I didn't bother looking it up on Zillow and how much they paid for it, but it doesn't look cheap, and it's Washington. So anyway, he starts his comment with, "I have a dream," Ta-da! I have a dream that one day people will learn the difference between opinion journos and straight news journos. Okay? Now, once again, differentiating between an opinion writer and a straight news writer, because apparently one of them, I don't know, doesn't really need to have facts. So my response was, I have a dream that, in parentheses, once respected journalists will base their opinions on fact and not venture into fiction.
Nice.
Right. So, and I really like that tweet too. And I sent that last night. I sent that last night about 12 hours ago, right? So probably 11 o'clock at night. So of course, I'm thinking about this. I'm thinking about the show. I'm thinking this might be something to talk about on the show. So I go back and I check my Twitter feed, and lo and behold, Rihanna, there actually was something to talk about on the show, because when I went to Jonathan Capehart's Twitter feed, this is what I saw. You are blocked from following at CapehartJ and viewing at CapehartJ's tweets. Learn more. So, right. And of course, so I sent this image out with the following tweet. You're entitled to your opinion unless it's about me. Hashtag retract Capehart at CapehartJ.
Oh my gosh. This is crazy.
Yeah.
Wow. I can't even, what do you say about this? I can't believe, first of all, can we talk about how wrong it is that and your response was just that, a response. How wrong is it that he started that particular tweet out with, I have a dream? Hello?
Right.
That's just gross.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yep.
Way to take a stand, Jonathan Capehart. Way to take a stand. Lots of us have Twitter accounts, not just Z.
Well, and we have TNZ Talk here, so I don't have just one Twitter account.
Right. Don't worry, TNZ is next. At TNZ is next.
Yeah, I've got like 3 others. So, I'm not I'm not too worried about any of this. And that's just to clarify, because people might say, well, how did you get that tweet if he blocked you? Right. Maybe you're not blocked. Maybe you're lying too. Maybe you're just a liar and disingenuous.
Maybe this is just your opinion, Z.
Right. Maybe this
your
is
opinion that you were blocked.
Right. That's exactly. It's just in my opinion, I was blocked. Well, you weren't blocked. Your account's right here. No, that's my opinion. You can't argue with me. I have an opinion. That's what I do. I write opinions. And I do write about opinions. I write about opinions, and my opinions are based on fact. And I'm not, I write for Huffington Post as a blogger. I'm an unpaid blogger. I write stuff. They put it up, and we both hope that I'm right and that there aren't going to be any lawsuits. And here's the thing, Rihanna. It's not that I always want to be right, although I like to. People often accuse me of, you just want to be right, and the fact is no, I don't want to be wrong. Right. That's my biggest fear. I don't care about being right, but if you can prove me wrong, I'll retract what I said. And apparently this little dude, just really doesn't give, crap.
No, he does not, apparently.
About actual evidence and facts. And this is something that we run into, right? You and I were talking about this morning. This is something we run into with everything. So, you had brought up a very good point of, is Jonathan Capehart representing himself as an independent tweeter, or is he, because of his position and his role at Washington Post, also representing the Washington Post? Now, you can put any disclaimer you want on your feed saying, my views are my own and they don't represent that of Washington Post. But does that really matter?
Well, here's the thing. When you look at his Twitter page, he has the headshot. He has the Capitol building. He mentions very clearly who he is, stating his credentials. Disclaimer or no disclaimer, he knows that a lot of people know who he is, who he writes for, and, to me, you can represent yourself, but if who you are, especially when you write things, is a journalist, for you to play these word games when you get caught in a lie and start, just, to me, it's bottom of the barrel to say, oh, I'm an opinion writer, because we all know where that came from. It came from, people scrutinizing Fox News and pointing out, hey, that chart you guys put up yesterday was totally disingenuous, misleading, and, hey, you guys photoshopped Trayvon Martin to look darker and have dark circles under his eyes and be, look different. Hey, you guys flat out keep lying about climate change. Like all those, the Fox News stuff, when people first started figuring out that they are not a news outlet, that's immediately what they did. Well, you see, we've got people who are straight news, and then we've got opinion people. But the opinion people act like journalists when they want to act like journalists and pretend that they're telling you, straight up information. That's bottom of the barrel. And Jonathan Capehart is going to go there? That's what he's going to do? I mean, if I were Washington Post, I would have a problem with him representing himself. I would have a problem with him saying things like that on his own personal Twitter when he references his credentials to sort of bolster some of his opinions that he's tweeting out. And a lot of people do this, and they're not held accountable, and I think it's a problem. There's supposed to be, all journalists are supposed to be exactly like you, Z, basically.
Well, let's not go too far. Let's not tread down that path.
But the truth matters.
Well, of course the truth.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter if it doesn't fit your narrative of the way you want the world to be, right? And that's the problem we have. And this kind of goes a little further into, things like social media, right? How does that work, and how is it affecting our view on the world, right? And you and I had talked a little bit about this, that when the runoff between Mitt Romney and Barack Obama, at the end there, on Fox News was Karl Rove, talking with Megyn Kelly and I think Chris Wallace, and saying, no, it's not over, he won. They believed he won. Romney's campaign believed he won so much that he hadn't even prepared a concession speech, because why would he need one? And this was really kind of the weird thing, too, and this is a little bit of a sidebar, but when Obama did win, he had tens of thousands of people at his campaign spot in Chicago ready to celebrate the win or to hear a concession speech. It was outside in the cold on a stage with tens of thousands of people. Romney had an event hall in Boston at one of the most expensive hotels in Boston, and it was a black tie affair, invitation only. So that right there should have told us, the difference between the candidates and what they were all about, right? And so now we have this. And so anyway, going back to Rove, they kept their own little bubble. They had their own information. They had their own polls. They were surrounded by people who agreed with them, who's told them, you're wonderful, this is great, we're all voting for them. And it's kind of like when I see something on Facebook, particularly on Facebook, it's not like something I see, it's exactly what I see on Facebook, is these people that comment and they go, everyone I talk to is voting for Bernie Sanders. And then you realize that, in the last 3 or 4 years on their Facebook feed, they've blocked or unfriended everyone who doesn't agree with them.
Right. Exactly.
So you've created your own little bubble in your social media world that you never venture out of, and surround yourself with people who agree with you.
Uh-huh.
And, go ahead, because I want to hear what you have to say.
Keep doing that, and next thing you know, you are Karl Rove being dragged out of the decision room in a straitjacket, going to a padded room. That's a problem. We have to face facts. We have to face reality. There's a really good video on YouTube of that black tie affair, of all of these people in their ball gowns and tuxedos, crying and hugging one another and looking at each other like, what just happened? How did the Democrats manage to steal this election? By getting more than 5 million other American citizens to vote for the president again. That's how. If you put yourself in this bubble, then, you really do end up doing the Karl Rove meltdown at some point. You end up, for example, having to play little word games if you are a legislator in Florida where, you're not allowed to use the term climate change. It's a dangerous place to go. And Capehart blocking people who call him out for flat out lying, he's surrounding himself. He's the boy in the bubble. Yeah. He's the boy in the bubble.
Yeah, and I can certainly understand, if things get heated or vulgar or things like that. But then even then, I posted something on my page on Facebook, not my profile, but my Zombeck page, and I think on the TNZ Talk Facebook page too. There's a picture of Chelsea Clinton in her apartment with her husband. There are pictures of her apartment and stuff. This is a $10 million apartment. It spans an entire New York block. Okay?
Wow.
It has its own security and a dedicated doorman. So there are like several apartments in this building, and I think there's one doorman per 4 apartments. So I don't know how that works, but it's something like that. And my comment on it was, oh, look, they represent, the rest of us, right? Something to that effect, right? Oh, look, they're just like us. That's what it was. And, some guy took issue with it, thought that it was unfair, that I shouldn't be going after the candidates' children, that, I was a hypocrite somehow. I don't quite understand where hypocrite came from.
Someone learned a new word.
I probably should have looked up the definition of hypocrite to see if he was accurate, because I'm good that way. That's the way I roll. Yeah. So, here we go. So it says inside Chelsea Clinton's $10 million luxury fortress that stretches over an entire New York City block and has one full-time doorman for just 4 units. And my comment was, the Clintons, just like us. Right?
Wow.
Yeah. So this guy says, but Trump is okay, you friggin' hypocrite. And I said, what? Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, his name's Brian. So I respond with, oh, I'm sorry, Brian, did I miss something? I could have sworn she was out campaigning for her mom, trying to convince us that they understand the plight of regular folks and want to do something about income inequality. This isn't an anti-Hillary post. It's an anti-Chelsea and Clinton post. She put herself out there. She gets the shots. That's the way it goes. If it's a problem, she should have stayed hidden in that $10 million fortress. Give me a break, and I'm a hypocrite. So he responds with yes, plus an a-hole, but he spelled it out. And I responded with, well, then that makes two of us, right? but here's the thing. I didn't block him. I didn't mute him. I didn't get rid of him because I want to hear other people's opinions. I want people to disagree with me so that I can form my argument or alter it if, in fact, new facts are presented. But in this case, look, if people start going after the Obama kids for being in private school, well, that's wrong, okay? He put kids in private school, okay. He's an elitist because he has his kids in private school. I can agree up to a certain point about that. But if they start slamming, the kids for, like, the music they're listening to or the dress they're wearing, like Huckabee did, saying that Obama's kids are listening to Beyonce, then I have a problem, right? Because that's nobody's business. But Chelsea Clinton is out actively campaigning for her mother, and right there she paints a target on her back. And might I add, she's out there actively campaigning for her mother incredibly badly. I mean, she was the worst person to put out there. She is god awful in a crowd talking to people. I can't even really think of. It doesn't come to mind what it was that she said, but it was something about health care, and that Bernie Sanders is going to take away everyone's health care to rebuild whatever. I mean, I just and so this guy, this Brian guy on my Facebook page, fine, he wants to come after me, but this is what happens, right? We get offended, our feelings get hurt, and we go, I'm going to block. I'm going to block you. You're no longer allowed on my page because I don't like you, right? And I've only done that a couple times. I've done it when someone was really, really over the top, screaming about how Obama's a Muslim and he's going to bring Sharia law because it's just not worth arguing with them anymore. And they end up being trolled and take up way too much space and energy on the page. And, the whole, as much as I want people on my page and having some kind of reasonable discourse, that kind of discourse when it gets into name calling and stuff like that, I don't like. And another one was a friend of a friend of mine's, right? That every time I would post a comment, would come up and say something about, you just want free stuff. You don't even look at you. You look gay. You're obviously gay. And even that was okay. But then he said, I went and looked at your wife's page and, she must be a real idiot to have married you, and she's probably a whore just like your mom. Right there, that was it. I blocked him. And he complained to his friend, our mutual friend, and complained to a whole bunch of other people. Zombek can't take political commentary. He can't take criticism. And everyone on this other guy's page was like, dude, you went after his wife.
Yeah, and his mom.
Yeah, exactly. And really, what if my mom is a whore? I mean, who cares?
Exactly. What if I'm gay? What if my mom's a whore? What if my wife's gay too? So what business is it of yours? And how the hell is that political? And, by the way, first of all, on behalf of my family, I'm going to go ahead and preemptively apologize. That Brian might just be my cousin. Based on our Thanksgiving dinner commentary, Trump supporter, Brian, I don't know. So I'll just go ahead and apologize up front just in case it is. And second of all, people, let me just say this. When you're on Twitter or Facebook or whatever, and you see a political comment that you want to, refute or whatever, honestly, a dictionary, a thesaurus, they're all right there at your fingertips. Just open a new tab, look up the words, come on. Hypocrite. You're a hypocrite. Have you ever expressed support for Trump, by the way? I don't think you have. It's just a guess, but
his point was more to, like, you know, Trump's rich too. What's your point, right? And it's like, well, you know, but it's okay for Trump. I'm like, well, first of all, I never said it was okay for Trump, but Trump made his own money, and you know, the whole thing too is that this is where I get a little confused, right? Because so I agree with him to a point. You know. That she has a lot of money, doesn't enter into this, blah, 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 and you can't attack Hillary for that. Well, first of all, I wasn't attacking Hillary. I was attacking Chelsea Clinton. And, well, I was attacking Hillary. I was attacking the Hillary campaign for ever have brought Chelsea into the mix. But it also raises another question because Chelsea Clinton lives in a $10 million fortress in New York City, and her husband is a hedge fund guy. And how did she meet her husband if the Clintons are such regular people? Right?
Not at a barbecue in Arkansas.
No, it was probably at a Clinton Foundation fundraiser at, I don't know, let me guess, a hedge fund.
Well, and that's a legitimate criticism. I mean, you're not saying, you know, I heard that actually we were wrong and our Muslim Kenyan usurping quote-unquote president is not actually the Antichrist. It's Hillary. We figured it out. It's her. So Hillary has horns and she's the Antichrist. Okay. A comment like that, come on, Brian, bring it on. We're at your level. But you made a legitimate criticism of someone stumping for Hillary. I mean, it's fair game.
Yeah, I think so. That's at least in my opinion, it is.
And that would be a fact. No, I mean, it is. Somebody's stumping for you. That's why they, you know, issue apologies when they say things that aren't representative of the campaign. If they're officially stumping for you, they're speaking for your campaign. If you put them out there, and you know, if that person, if in your view that person's hypocritical, that's fair game. That's not below the belt. It's really not. The things that some people cry about, I guarantee you. You know, Brian there is one of those people who throws themselves on the ground and starts crying and screaming when you put a little, you know, legitimate criticism out there at him. That's how they roll. They don't deal in the same realm of reality as a lot of us do. Well, so it makes no sense.
You know, and he saw fit to call me an a-hole. So. You know, what it does kind of lead to. I mean, this was actually not a really bad conversation, right? I mean, the guy disagreed with me. He was inaccurate as far as I'm concerned. In that, you know, bringing up Trump was kind of irrelevant, and I could have had an entire discussion on that. But you know, I had a chance to explain my reasoning for posting that, laid out a little plan for him, and his response was to call me an a-hole. So okay, so I'm an a-hole, and you know, so are you. So there we go. We have two a-holes talking. But you know what typically happens, and what I see a lot of, is you know, you get into this habit of kind of modifying your feed into this, you know, what I like to refer to as a petri dish of ignorance. It's this one little tiny circle of people, and you know, even if you have 1,000 friends, right? I mean, my Facebook page has 1,500, almost 1,400 followers. My one Twitter feed, Zombek, has 16,000 followers. I've got another Twitter feed that's got 18,000 followers. So that's a lot of people that I surround myself with, right? Now, do all of them, are all of them with, Unite Blue or Democracy Now! Or Bernie followers? All of them? I doubt it. Are a lot of them liberal? Yeah, I would say that a lot of the people that follow me on my page and on my Twitter feed are liberal because I talk about things that they're interested in, right? But if someone comes on that's a Republican or right-leaning or firmly believes that Obama is a Muslim and here to usher us into the end of days, I'm not going to block them. I'm not going to block them because I want to hear what they have to say, right? Yeah. And I also don't want to hear what they have to say so that I can convince them otherwise, right? I think it's a decent mental exercise to be questioned, to have your opinion questioned, to have your views questioned. And when someone says, I don't agree with you, I want to hear why. Because I want to be able to, I either want to be able to change my opinion, alter it, or strengthen it. And the only way that I can strengthen it is that if you don't agree with me, right? So what we have is billions of people that are on this thing, a good number of the time, most of the day, getting their news from that. And look, I mean, I got a text message from a friend of mine who I had casually mentioned that I have this podcast, right? That we have TMZ Talk, and that Tony and I do this every day. And part of that was also, and I want to say this to anyone who's listening too, because this is very important to us. Is we do need your support. We're not talking about just financial support. We have a page up on tnztalk.com. It's tnztalk.com/support. It'll give you a number of ways in which you can support us. And the majority of the ways are by listening to the show, and in particular going to iTunes, subscribing to our podcast, and rating us. And hopefully rating us with 5 stars or 4 stars or, whatever you feel. But please don't just go up there and give us 1 star and, screw us out of the other listeners that we could be getting. When iTunes and other subscription places see these ratings and these subscriptions, they tend to bump you up a little bit so more people can find you. So if you're enjoying the show and you want to share this with other people who could enjoy the show also, spread us around, spread the website around, put it on your Facebook and Twitter, and tell people about this, and help us get some of this information out to other listeners. So anyway, this friend of mine, Allie, texted me a couple of days ago and said, "Hey, you told me about your podcast. You told me about your show. I downloaded. I'm going to listen to it tonight." And then yesterday, out of the blue, I get this text from her saying, "Hey, listen to today's show. It was really great. I didn't know all that stuff about what was going on with the Washington Post and Bernie Sanders." And she says, "It's also making me realize how important it is to check your sources." Right? Mm-hmm. As you can imagine, I was overjoyed. I mean, absolutely overjoyed to hear that. And so she and I ended up having a conversation, and she's like, what are some really good sources of news that I can get real news? And I probably listed about 12 to 15 different online news sources, right? Along with Al Jazeera, BBC, NPR, and all with caveats too, for the most part, usually, things like that. And then I said, if there's a story you're interested in, if there's something that you want to know more about, find an article, read it, and then find 3 or 4 more articles about it elsewhere, and form your own opinion and judge for yourself and get to where you're comfortable in what you think about this, right? Which is what I do. And granted, it's time consuming. And, it's time consuming because we have media that just really can't be ultimately trusted. So listen, we spent a lot of time on Jonathan Capehart once again, although I kind of like the way the conversation evolved. Let's move on. Shall we move on to Donald Trump?
Oh, yeah. Oh, we have to. My God. I'm going to have heart palpitations, but let's do it.
So, what happened with Donald Trump? Well, Donald Trump apparently has gone to war with the Pope.
That's your opinion, Z.
Donald Trump is mad at the Pope.
Yeah.
And well, I'm trying to figure out how best to address this. Let's do this. And I want to say something before we play this clip. But I want to play the clip of the Pope on the plane. Okay. So Pope Francis, during his trip to Mexico, was asked by a reporter on the plane, and it's important to put it in context. The guy's like 300 years old.
Yeah.
He's a former Jesuit priest. Anyone who was alive, not sleeping, or in a coma, is aware of his trip to the United States and the effect that it had on people. It even made the Speaker of the House cry, John Boehner, who cried more than usual that day, and ended up quitting his job and leaving politics altogether after the Pope came. So the Pope did a wonderful job.
Yes. Bravo.
I don't know if we got something worse. I think we got something worse, but at least someone that talks and doesn't kowtow to the Tea Party. But anyway, so the Pope, after 300 years old, brand new Pope, really nice, sweet guy, Jesuit monk, visiting Mexico. It's hot. Had a long day. Gets on the plane. And some reporter asks him about what he thinks about Donald Trump building a wall around Mexico. And the thing is that the Pope was not in Mexico to talk about the wall. The Pope was in Mexico to talk about poverty and things that popes and Jesuits are interested in. So this clip is it's an American I think it was an American reporter asking him. He responds in his native language. He's from Argentina, and there's a translator translating what he says. So let's go ahead and play that, Rihanna.
A person that only thinks to rebuild walls, wherever they may be, instead of building bridges, is not Christian.
Non è cristiano.
Was that it?
That was it.
That was it. Okay. So, what is going on in headlines today? Are headlines like loser Pope takes on Donald Trump, suffers massive humiliation, slinks off to Vatican. That was from the Washington Post. What the Pope did and didn't mean when he said Trump was not a Christian. I'm going to get back to that in just a minute. Pope Francis on Donald Trump. This man is not Christian. Right. And today on Morning Joe. So these are the headlines we have, right? Is Pope accuses Trump of not being Christian. Pope slams Trump on all this, right? Just bombastic headlines that the Pope is actually attacking Donald Trump. And then today, well-known plagiarist and former Boston reporter Mike Barnicle who's on Morning Joe, as and anyone who doesn't agree with what I just said, look up Mike Barnacle's history, and he was fired from a Boston newspaper for plagiarism. So tweet me all you want. That's not my opinion. That's a fact. So
yes.
what Mike Barnacle decides to say is, well, he doesn't have he may have inartfully said what he did because he's not familiar with the language, insinuating that what the Pope said was in English, which is not his native language. But Mike Barnacle, being a reporter, didn't bother to look into, one, what the Pope actually said, and two, what language he said it in. Okay? Because, as you and I just heard, that wasn't English.
No,
right?
No, it didn't seem to be.
It was translated into English, but didn't sound like English to me.
No, no.
So I want to read. So that article that I said I was going to go back to is written by James Martin, who is a Jesuit priest and an editor-at-large, and the author of 7 Last Words. And he writes in, our favorite newspaper for today, the Washington Post. And let's see, Pope Francis was blah, blah, blah. I can't find it. We'll get back to it. But what he actually said, Brianna, and I'm paraphrasing, is if in fact anyone who says this is not a Christian,
right?
And if this man in fact said this, parenthetical statement, and I'm not sure that he did, then that man is not a Christian. So here's his direct quote. A person who thinks only about building walls, wherever they may be, and not building bridges, is not Christian. This is not the gospel. As far as what you said about whether I would advise to vote or not to vote, I am not going to get involved in that. I say only that this man is not Christian if he says things like that. We must see if he said things in that way, and in this I give him the benefit of the doubt. Okay? That is the exact quoted wording translated that the Pope used. How that gets construed as the Pope said that Trump isn't Christian.
That seems to be the opposite, the like diametrically opposite of what Donald Trump and Rush Limbaugh and Sean Hannity and all of those people are attacking. They're attacking a whole other quote. So I wonder who said what it is that they're attacking.
They're attacking a whole other quote that never happened.
Yeah.
Is what they're doing. This is the kind, and this goes far and wide over anything you want about headlines and I call it Google bait, right? What people are going to click on. How are we going to get them over there? How are we going to get them to read this article? And that, look, I have plenty of articles that I've written that have crazy headlines. I think I might have even used a reference to the clown car when I was talking about Republicans, and when they were talking about abortion and stuff. And tons and tons of people go to there. I get 50,000, 60,000 likes on a lot of these articles, and I get hundreds and hundreds of comments. But the comments that I have a very difficult time with are the ones that say, great article, but what you failed to address was, the following, and they go into 3 paragraphs of something that they say that I didn't address in the article, and I go back and point out, it's like, well, if you had bothered to read past the headline and gotten to the 4th paragraph, you would have seen that I actually did address that, right? So this is something that every reporter and writer and journalist knows, is that people rarely get past the headline. They rarely, and they read the headline and they go, and that's their talking point for the day. That's their idea of news, and they don't read the content and they don't apply that. So, this kind of reporting and media, that Pope slammed Donald Trump. Well, no, he didn't. He gave a very thoughtful answer to a question that came out of left field.
And made a larger point, by the way. Was trying to make a point that seems to be completely missing, completely absent from all of this commentary that's swirling around.
Which is?
Well, I mean, it sounds to me like the Pope was trying to say, building up someone who is in pursuit of building a wall, between 2 countries or 2 people or, whatever, rather than building a bridge to reach your hand out and let's do this together. It doesn't seem to be Christian. I mean, that's the larger point.
Right. What it says in the gospel and what Christianity is about being inclusive, right? Yeah. Is about reaching out to other people, about bringing people in, about being inclusive to our neighbors, to people in other countries, to people from other lands. It's not about closing yourself off and closing people out, right? Yeah. And the question was the larger question which he answered is, what do you think about someone who says something like this, right? And he made it very clear. I'm not going to do who you shouldn't vote for. That's none of my business. I didn't actually hear this guy say that. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. But someone who does say things like this, I would have to say, is not a Christian, because it doesn't represent Christian values. So he didn't. We could go on about this for like hours, but it's
very frustrating.
It not a slam. It wasn't a slam on Donald Trump. It was a slam on anyone who thinks like that. So basically, he's telling anyone who thinks we should build a wall and keep all those Mexican criminals out that you're not really acting in a very Christian way. So listen, we've got like 7 minutes. Let's do the Trump's response, the full presser that he comes out, because this is really worth hearing, and I don't think we or our listeners should miss this.
All righty.
Mexico is the new China. And I mean, I just had word as an example, the Pope. The Pope was in Mexico. Do you know that? Did everyone know, right? He said negative things about me because the Mexican government convinced him that Trump is not a good guy, because I want to have a strong border. I want to stop illegal immigration. And the Pope just made a statement. Can you imagine? I just got a call. As I'm walking up here, they said, Mr. Trump, the Pope made a statement about you. I said, the Pope? What did the Pope say? I like the Pope. I mean, was it good or bad? Because if it's good, I like the Pope. If it's bad, I don't like the Pope. The Pope is being told that Donald Trump is not a nice person, okay? Donald Trump is a very nice person, and I am a very nice person. And I'm a very good Christian, because the Pope said something to the effect that maybe Donald Trump isn't Christian, okay? And he's questioning my faith. I was very surprised to see it, but I am a Christian, and I'm proud of it. Okay, for a religious leader to question a person's faith is disgraceful. I'm proud to be a Christian, and as president, I will not allow Christianity to be consistently attacked and weakened, unlike what is happening now with our current president. Okay? Believe me. Very important, and this has just been given out to the press 2 seconds ago. No leader, especially a religious leader, should have the right to question another man's religion or faith, especially when they feed all sorts of false information into them.
Oh,
yeah.
So many problems with that.
Well, and part of that he was reading was part of what he was talking about was he was reading from a press release from the Trump campaign, and it's like, okay, so in that, what was that, a 2-minute, 3-minute clip? In those short 2 minutes, the Pope is a patsy. He's rude. He has no idea what he's talking about. He's apparently, where people are able to pull the wool over his eyes and use him as a mouthpiece for their own agenda. And
he doesn't have the right to question anything, any other person's faith. Apparently, he doesn't have the right.
Right, and the point that this Jesuit priest made too about Pope Francis was when he said if he said things in that way, this is the same man, the Pope, who asked, "Who am I to judge?" Right, when it came to
That's right.
to homosexuals and gay marriage, who am I to judge? A guy who has talked about nothing but peace, nothing but equality and things like that, and did not actually. It's disturbing, to a level that is almost incomprehensible. That they're not only misquoting him, is that they've completely changed what he said, and based on that alone, and on what history has shown us with this Pope, I'm willing to bet that we can expect a response and a statement from the Vatican directly laying out what the Pope said, what he meant, how he said it, and his exact words. Because this is just another way for Trump to make himself seem like something that he's not. And
absolutely,
it's this is a man of faith, a man of God who represents the Catholic Church, who has done tremendous outreach for the Catholic Church. Obviously lives the life that he feels a pope is supposed to lead, of minimalist and all of that. One of my favorite moves on his part was there was this Catholic bishop in Germany who the actual nickname was the Bishop of Bling.
Bishop of Bling.
And Pope Francis fired the guy, took his mansion, and turned it into a soup kitchen for poor people.
Exactly. So, this Pope sneaks away from his, security to go and feed people at night. I mean, they have to keep an extra eye on him. They worry about him because he finds a way to slip out and walk the streets undetected and feed people who need food. One of the first things he did was wash the feet of prisoners.
Yeah.
I mean, he invited the homeless, he opened the gates of the Vatican and invited the homeless to see the Shroud of Turin, which is something that until, that point, only clergy, upper-level clergy, were allowed to be graced with, that. This is not somebody that Donald Trump needs to be in a pissing contest with over Christianity, basically.
And he also makes random phone calls to people who write him. I still remember the story of this woman in Brazil who got a phone call from him, and he goes, "Yeah, this is the Pope." She goes, "No, it's not." "Yeah, no, it's the Pope. I got your letter right here. This is what you wrote." And she's like, "Oh my God, it is the Pope." And so, so the Vatican is, they're on their toes all the time with this little dude, because he's pulling stuff like this all the time, And we have Donald, and what really got me was the crowd cheering too, like the Pope, like who the hell is he? You know?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. You know, who the hell's the Pope? So
I mean, it's a much different tagline than we used to have. You know, who do you think you are, the Pope? Who the hell does the Pope think he is? Where did this come from? It's because this guy does not deny science. It's because this guy does not, repudiate and demonize, personal choices that people make with reproductive rights, or, people. He doesn't demonize people for not denying their nature when they're gay. This is just a perfect example of how backward the GOP base is. Right. I mean, they're like rabid dogs. And can I point this out too? I'm really getting tired of every opportunity they get. And even Donald Trump jumped on the bandwagon, apparently. They attack the Obama administration and make these wild claims that the Obama administration is attacking and weakening Christianity. If I hear it again, I'm sure I'm going to pull my hair out. It makes no sense. Ensuring the constitutional rights of every citizen, trying to work toward that goal, is apparently an attack on Christianity in this country.
Well,
go figure that.
Let me say this before we wrap up the show. And my response to people like that there's an attack on Christianity, that he's weakening Christianity. My response has always been, and will always be, if your faith is weakened by someone questioning it, then your faith isn't strong, and you need to look at that. Because when I have conviction about something, when I know that I'm right, in my gut, in my heart, nothing anyone says changes that. You can argue with me all you want, but my faith and my belief and my conviction is unwavering. So attack me all you want. In fact, that kind of stuff is in the Bible. That kind of stuff is all through history. We saw it with Jesus Christ. We saw it with Joan of Arc. It's like, this is my faith. You want to kill me. You want to hang me up on a cross. This is my faith.
Yes.
It doesn't matter what you think, what you do. I still have my faith and my beliefs. And anyone who accuses the administration or the president or of a single person in politics weakening Christianity somehow, well, then your faith isn't strong. I'm sorry.
That's right.
That's all the time we have on this Friday, February 19th.
Okay.
So that's us for today on TNZ Talk. Once again, TNZ Talk. So TNZTalk.com. You can get our Facebook feed, Twitter, archives, Tumblr, support page, everything you need and probably really don't want to know about us. You can find there. I want to thank Rihanna Peebles for filling in these last couple of days. May or may not have you here next week. We're going to have to see what happens. But that ends our show for today. And as Tony always likes to say, we wish that you be well.